All right, is that it? Did it happen that fast? Wow. Let's see. Let me make sure. I think we are live. I
We're
think we
live.
are live there, Steve. Let me make sure. This technology stuff is. Let me see. There, yep, there we are. All right. Let me mute myself. Okay, we are good to go. Welcome, folks. Oh my goodness, it's happening already. This is ridiculous. Steve Poland is already thinking, what have I gotten myself into? This is ridiculous. Folks, sorry to be a few minutes late. I had to literally, within 5 minutes, inhale my dinner. It's ridiculous. I mean, so this is probably going to be going on for a little while. But welcome, Tank Talk Live. I'm excited. This is a big deal today because we're talking nothing but African cichlids. African cichlids are what got me. I don't want to say where I am today because it's not like I'm in like some kind of big place or anything like that. But until African cichlids, nobody ever knew who I was, and I was just a guy in King George in my garage. So I owe a lot to African cichlids. They are what I'm known for and what I absolutely love. Of course, I love a lot of different kinds of fish, but when I thought of doing a show all about African cichlids, there was a few people that came to mind. One of them is on next week, and the other is on, or one of the others is on tonight. Mr. Steve Poland is with me tonight, another guy known for African cichlids. So, Steve, really excited to have you on here today. I've had a lot of people messaging me looking forward to today's episode. So, take a few minutes, if you will, so that I can calm down and let my food start to sink. Take a few minutes, introduce yourself. If there's people that are here that are not familiar with who you are, let them know who you are and sell yourself a little bit.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I appreciate it. Let that food digest, man. He's not kidding. He inhaled that thing.
He watched me.
He inhaled it pretty quick. So he's going to be feeling it for a minute. Everyone, my name is Steve Poland. If you don't know, my channel is Steve Poland Cichlids. I keep and breed African cichlids exclusively. I don't have any other type of fish. My channel is kind of a mix of things. It's really documenting my journey throughout this hobby over the past couple years and beyond. So I'm showing my fish, my tanks, updates on all of that, various projects that I'm working on, products that I like and use and am reviewing, and just some general tips and things that I've learned as I've been doing this. I got started in the hobby. We had fish tanks when I was a kid, probably just a 10-gallon. That it's the typical story. My local fish store, and I'm in Ohio, we had a chain that did Fish of the Month Club. I don't know if any of you guys, or John, if you have ever had an LFS that does Fish of the Month, but we needed it because we were not good fish keepers, and our fish would die, and so we would need a new fish just about every month to fill that tank. Like I said, typical story. I don't think my parents, who really were in charge of the tank, had any idea what they were doing. But I always thought it was cool, and I liked fish tanks. And fast forward to college, I had a tank in college. My girlfriend, 1 year for my birthday, got me a massive tank, like the biggest tank that I could ever imagine, which was a 29-gallon tank. And again, I had no idea what I was doing. I had never heard of the nitrogen cycle. I always wondered why fish would just die. I would mix the most ridiculous fish in there. It was just it was a disaster. And that's why I really like these days with the internet, we have YouTube, and we can all learn about this and actually figure out what we're doing. So a couple years ago, my family, we're dog people big time. And we had the greatest dog that was a border collie and golden retriever mix, which is just, if you can ever get a mix of those two breeds, do it, because it was the greatest dog. And he passed away a couple years ago in old age, and it was it wasn't like some tragedy or anything, but we've been it left a hole for us, and we aren't ready to get another dog again. We're just still too sad about it. So a couple years ago, decided, hey, I always liked fish. I've got young kids. I've got two kids that are 3 and 5. And so decided, hey, maybe the kids would like a fish tank. And so I went on Craigslist and thought, oh man, look, here's a tank that is way bigger than anything I thought existed, which is 55 gallons. So I bought a 55-gallon tank. Within 2 days, I had sold that 55-gallon tank and bought a better 55-gallon tank, thus starting a really long and terrible cycle of flipping fish tanks, which is kind of continued. But took that 55, got a great community tank going, gourami, all that kind of stuff. And within a couple months I just knew I was ready for something else, ready for something more exciting. And when I first started keeping fish and read about everything on the internet and knew how to cycle a tank and did all that properly, everything I saw said, African cichlids, you better know what you're doing. It's an advanced type of fish to keep, not for newcomers. So I had avoided them. And after a few months, I kept fish. None of them died. I thought, maybe I know what I'm doing. I'm going to try it. So I sold all my community fish, got a bunch of Mbuna, started there, kept Mbuna for a while. Again, I think this is a little bit of a typical narrative, or it's becoming that way. I love the Mbuna. It was great. I loved keeping African cichlids. Some of them did not live, African cichlids, especially Mbuna, they'll kill each other and all of those things. And I after a while, the aggression of Mbuna got a bit too much. And so, a lot of them had bred. I was having fun with that, but offloaded the Mbuna, went with all peacocks and haps, and have never looked back. So that's what I keep now. I've got peacocks and haps. These tanks behind me, this is my den. I've got a 125 over here and a 90 over here that's mostly a grow out. And I've got tanks downstairs, a total of 16 tanks in a fish room, 5 breeding groups of peacocks, and 1 group of haps. And then I've got a big grow out system in my crawl space that I can talk about if you guys want. But yeah, so I'm pretty much, it's so funny to have, in the past couple of years, have gone from really getting back into the hobby to being pretty fish crazy like a lot of you are. So it's that multiple tank syndrome has taken full hold on me, and it's probably not letting go anytime soon. But I'm like you, John. I'll just talk and talk about it. So that's my story. At least the base of it, and of course, I can answer a lot of questions and stuff. But that is the beginning of it anyway.
Well, that's cool. I was getting a little bit nervous because you were kind of going. You were pulling a John Hudson there, where you were going and going and going, and I was afraid you were gonna already answer the questions that I had pre-planned to ask you, because I figured we would talk here for a little bit and get the people an opportunity to not only get in the room but also get to know you, and then we will go to questions that are direct from the viewers here. Folks, let me just go ahead and say, if you have a question for Steve, or if you have a question for me pertaining to African cichlids, don't come at me with your clown loach questions and your guppies and your convicts. Let's keep this episode strictly African cichlids. That's why Steve's here. I'm sure he's well versed in other things too, but let's keep it on track today and go strictly with African cichlids. So you did answer one of my questions that I was going to ask, which was what got you into African cichlids. So you ruined that for me, but
sorry, that's my bad.
It's okay. I won't kick you out. I'll keep you on. We're not lost yet. The next question that I had, though, and I only had 2, so it shows you how prepared I was. Why a YouTube channel? I mean, you got into this a couple of years ago, whatever, and you immediately fell face first into it, like so many of us do. But why document all of that on YouTube? What got the Steve Poland Cichlids channel started?
Well, that's a great question. My first video was like a 30-second time lapse that I think I took with my iPhone because I thought the time lapse stuff was cool. I wanted to try it out, and I thought, ooh, fish tank time lapse, that could be cool. So I got a couple of those as my early videos. And then, yeah, I thought it'd be fun. I joined YouTube, oh man, a long time ago, 2008 or something, with a couple of random videos just like around the house or whatever. So like I had a channel, but I didn't use it. So really I got into aquarium YouTube because I thought it was, I had watched a ton of it for one. I think that was the big thing, is as I was learning, how to be an actual fish keeper and not just somebody who, you know, got a fish tank and is failing at it. As I was trying to bridge that gap, I watched a ton of YouTube. And especially as I was getting, then when I was getting into African cichlids, I watched a ton of YouTube then. You know, African Cichlid Hub, a lot of those channels. It was such a huge help to me. And I've also I'm a geek, you know, I like to do computer stuff. And so it's not like a huge stretch for me to do really any of this, the technical side. So it just made sense to maybe document some of it as I went along. You know, never claiming that I was, you know, this lifelong expert. And I hope nobody thinks that I come off that way, because I'm certainly not. I'm learning all the time. As I try things, as I make videos and people give me feedback and comments, I've learned so much that way. It's great. So yeah, no, it's really just a way to document as I go through the hobby, give some perspective as maybe somebody who, yeah, is getting into it and is learning and sharing it as I go. It's not, you know, it's not like a vlog or something necessarily, like in that type of a way. I mean, you know, I have a video every week, but it's not like, it's not like a, hey, you know, I'm feeding my fish today or something like. I mean, it's, you know, I try to at least come at it with, hey, here's the project I'm working on, or hey, here's something that I've learned and that maybe you could benefit from, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I'm not going to go all in on, you know, YouTube type stuff or whatever, but your channel's growing. It's growing nicely, and I believe that is why there's people that, and this is just my opinion. I mean, everything I say is my opinion. I get in trouble for it sometimes, but there's people who just want to be a part of the community, and they put videos out and they do what you just said. You know, hey, I just did a water change, I thought I would show my fish. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's fun to, you know, share with people, and then when the people watch it, they can get ideas, inspiration for things that they're doing on their tanks. But it's the people that actually put some production into it, and they involve a project of some type and stuff like that, like you do, like I do, like a lot of people do. Those are the channels that that kind of grow. And so there's a lot of different ways of looking at it, but
and I think there's a lot of value also to, and even if you don't, whether you publish it or not, a lot of value to you know, taking video, or I mean pictures, but video especially of your tank, because it really, you can look back and see, it gives you an easy way to keep track of how things are going. I really like to go back if I have a question about, you know, does it has this improved? Have these fish grown? How do they look compared to how they looked 6 months ago? It's nice to be able to have a record of that. And yeah, I mean, you know, I publish it or whatever, but I encourage everybody to do that, to try and at least help themselves keep pace, on how they're doing, on how things are going.
Absolutely. I mean, good Lord, if you follow me and you go back 4.5 years to when I first started making videos, I mean, of course, I would encourage anybody that's sitting on their butt doing nothing to just watch all of my videos. I think there's only 300, but to watch the evolution of my channel to go up and then back down and all of this, it's crazy that I even do it. I mean, I like doing that. I like going back and seeing what things are like, and seeing how all people's channels evolve. Go way back and watch some of Joey's first videos, and it's like they're still very good, but it's like nothing compared to what it is now. So it is fun. I mean, to me, it's whether you're doing it like I'm doing it, you know, where there's a business attached and you're trying to grow it for those purposes while also helping the community, or if you're doing it just to be a part of the community, it's really fun to just be able to watch that and follow along with what people's progress is and all of that. It's YouTube. I'm sure you can vouch for this. YouTube is just as addicting as the hobby itself. To me, it's like a whole other hobby.
Yeah, it's dangerous actually. I think there's like a perception out there that that you can make all this like these riches off of YouTube, but the danger is that like for me, at least personally, there are probably so many projects that I've undertaken because I wanted to film them that I probably wouldn't have done anyway, otherwise. And so, of course, then I end up like this hobby isn't already expensive enough. That to me is the biggest danger of YouTube. But it's, again, like you said, it's fun and it's cool to see how it evolves. And for me, being a geek, it was just like a natural progression.
Yeah, I mean, if we talk about YouTube too much, then the audience is going to go, they're going to go way down. So people are here to watch and learn about African cichlids. So we got some questions coming in already, and the first one is doesn't specify you or me. So how about this? We'll both answer it, and it's a pretty easy one. Well, I don't know, maybe it's not. Favorite hap, favorite peacock, favorite mbuna.
Ooh, okay. You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
No, you're the guest. It's all up to you, man.
Okay. Well, I'll start with peacocks and haps because that's what I keep now. It's tough, man. To pick a favorite, it's like picking your favorite child. Favorite peacock, and we can get into feelings about hybrids or not, but I'm a sucker for whatever you want to call it, the dragon blood. There's so many trade names for it, as people have line bred all these peacocks. And a lot of people don't like hybrids, and if it's just a random hybrid, I may feel that way too. But there's something about dragon bloods that gets me. That tends to be my favorite peacock. My favorite hap, man, can't go wrong with a star sapphire. Placidochromis phoenicalis. Yeah, they're just, I mean, they're a slow grower. They take forever to reach their full potential, but man, once they do, those chips, the speckles, it's tough to beat that. Favorite mbuna? Man, I don't know. I like bright colors. So I mean, I like a good red zebra. I mean, I think yellow labs get a bad rap, but if you get a good yellow lab, like, the Lion's Cove, the true yellow labs, those are beautiful. I mean, they're just beautiful fish. There's a reason they're so popular.
Oh, I completely agree. I said it in a recent one of these live streams. I said that yellow labs are one of my absolute favorite African cichlids. So I'm with you there for sure. And see, the nice thing about having a guest on and kind of dictating the way things go, I can say, you have to go first. And it looks like I'm being polite because you're my guest, but in all actuality, what I wanted was a little bit of time to think of my answers. So peacock for me, it's going to be the red top Lawanda. I mean, that's I totally agree with you that dragon bloods are sensational, especially when you consider that you have some that are like way on the red side, some are way on the white side. And not trying to light the hybrid fuse here, even though, if we run out of questions, we can certainly touch on that later on, but I don't care. I mean, if it's a pretty fish, it's a pretty fish to me. That's the way I look at it. And so I went for years not even knowing that dragon bloods were hybrids, intentionally line bred fish to look like that. I didn't even know, and I didn't care. And maybe that's why I love them as much as I do. But anyway, the Lawanda, though, to me is kind of the most show-stopping peacock out there. A very close number two. Again, I'm going to go controversial here, and I'm going to say OBs. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. The speckles, all of the different variations in the different colors. I've got 5 of them in there, and I don't care if it hurts anybody's feelings. I love those fish. That's the way it is. So, but anyway, he didn't ask top 3. He asked top. So red top Lawanda. Favorite hap used to be the Bucconodo, but I'm going to go with the trout now. And I deal in common names. That's just the way I do it. Cool. Scientific names, you say them one syllable off, and people just go absolutely bananas on you. So the trout is going to be my favorite hap. I've got one in there that I've got my fingers crossed is going to turn out to be an absolutely phenomenal male. And then in Mbuna, I'm going to go with Demasoni. I mean, it's one of those, like you said, the yellow lab has a bad rap. I don't know if yellow labs having a bad rap. You taught me something there, but Demasoni certainly have a bad rap. They've got a bad rep, kind of like OBs do. But just you get that blue and black, man. I don't know. There's something about that fish. I just absolutely love that. So So yeah, those would be my top three. Well, this is kind of a long, I mean, it's a similar thing. And of course, you get to go first, but neither one of us should take long thinking about this. Nelson Estevez. Oh, by the way, the first question was asked by Cichlid Madman. By the way, that's a pretty cool name. Nelson Estevez wants to know what was your very first fish. And if it was a goldfish, you have to go to your second fish because everybody's first fish was a goldfish.
Well, my very first fish ever, when we were like, when I was a kid and we had that tank, I don't even remember what we had. We had so many things. It's probably neon tetra or something. Something easy that you get at a store. That every store sells. I'm sure that's. I know we had those. I don't think we had goldfish when I was a kid. I had them in college. I probably had. Yeah, I think I had Jack Dempsey's and goldfish in the same tank. If that gives you any idea of how that went.
Nice.
It did not go well. It also did not go well when I would, the thing that I know you've talked about and that we always warn people not to do, which is every 3 months, just get clean your filter and your tank, just sparkling clean. Right. I mean, like basically every cliche mistake I made, but yeah, I'd say first fish back then when we were kids probably was a tetra or something. And then I think first African cichlid were yellow labs. And when I said a bad rap, I didn't mean like violence wise. I guess I just meant like,
they're too common.
Yeah, too common, and so many of them. A lot of them that you see are bad. I mean, in terms of the lines, because they're so common, you get bad lines of them.
Right.
Anyways, yeah.
Well, I said it. I think I said it last week when Corey was on with me, or I don't know. I said it at some point. One of the prettiest tanks I've ever seen was a tank with nothing but yellow labs in it. Everything was all blacked out, and it was just yellow labs. It was fantastic. It was beautiful. My first fish. See, there's two first fish for me, because there was the first fish when I just had a fish tank and I was a kid and I didn't care about it, like you were talking about the tetra. But then when I was an older teenager, I think I was 17 or 18, and I bought my own tank and I, selected my own fish. There's two different stories there. My very first fish that I ever put in a tank was a convict, black convict. I had two of them, and they turned out to be male and female. They turned out to breed. I had them forever. And they were really cool. And maybe because they're my first fish, that's why I don't let anybody ask convict questions on my streams. But when I really got into fish, and it was like at the level that we are now, where it's part of your lifestyle, it's an obsession. This is going to sound ridiculous, but it was a silver arowana. I mean, that's the fish that drew me in. Like, I've got to have that fish in my life. And so that I already understood kind of the basics of water chemistry and all that, and the cycling process and all that. So I immediately got a 55 because, those are huge and plenty big for an arowana. And quickly had to upgrade that tank to a tank that's still not even big enough. But that was my first one, was a silver arowana. So that's, and the first African cichlid technically for me was a Budicofri, but that's not, Malawian or Tanganyikan or anything like that. That's just a Madagascar cichlid. But technically that would be my first African cichlid. But I had a lot of Mbunas way back in the day that I didn't even know what they were. But then, like, when I really got sucked into African cichlids, it was an OB peacock that brought me into it. So, okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is an interesting one. Tyler is the first name. Don't know the last name. I'm not going to botch it. What are some oddball African cichlids for a 55-gallon tank? That's an interesting one.
Oddballs. Well, it's tough with a 55, I mean, you got to really be careful with really any 4-foot tank with African cichlids. You really got to make sure you plan it out right. Especially 55. It's just not a very big tank for especially peacocks and haps, and especially the bigger haps. And an oddball? What's a good oddball?
You want me to take this one? I've got a good
Well,
one.
yeah.
And since I already have it, I don't want you to steal it from me. Calvus. I would go, because Calvus stay pretty small, and particularly the Neolamprologus compressiceps, the gold, like the gold heads and all of those, they don't get huge. And you want to talk about an oddball? You don't get much more oddball than that. It's Tanganyikan, so some people automatically attribute African cichlids to be Malawian. We are talking about a different deal, but they're one of my absolute favorite fish. I would love just an all compressicep calvus tank. I would love that. Not Dimitochromis compressiceps, because they get giant, but the Neolampros for sure. And calvus. I mean, calvus don't get huge, so I think you'd be okay in a 55 with calvus.
That's a good answer. I definitely am guilty of always defaulting to Malawi. The only thing that I keep that is not from Malawi is like Synodontis catfish. Not because I have anything against Tanganyikans, I just haven't kept them. Maybe it's at some point I'll start a Tanganyikan tank, or I'm sure I probably will, knowing me, but I haven't. So like I don't default that way. That's a good answer though. That's a good oddball for that size.
Well, and I think that's a hobby wide thing. I mean, it's kind of like, Kleenex is the generic term for a facial tissue. When you say cichlids, people automatically attribute that to Malawian African cichlids. That's kind of, like you said, the default. So I don't think you're different than anybody else. I mean, and I'm glad you didn't steal that one. I'm glad I answered that one first, because I'd have been upset if you stole that one from me.
You're giving me too much credit. That was a good answer.
All right, let's go to again, a last name I'm not going to try. Zachary is the first name, and he says, "Hey Steve, have you thought of breeding and selling fish?" Well, I think we already know the answer to that. You kind of answered that before. You have some awesome males that I would love to get a hold of.
Yeah, so my breeding is really for fun. It's an extension of my hobby. I am selling a few fish locally, so if you're in Central Ohio, then that's cool. But yeah, I'm not shipping fish. I mean, these are all things that you know all too well, John. Is that breeding fish? If you want to get serious about it, it's a tough endeavor to pull off, and especially in shipping fish, there's a whole nother. I mean, I know that if I set about to do it, I could do it, but it's not something that I really feel like I have the time for, or I guess really with anything, if you don't feel like you have the time, it's that it's not a priority for you. And it's just not, shipping fish is just not a priority for me. I'm breeding just because I like it. It's fun. I do have some groups that I like a lot. And so fortunately I've got a few males, like you said, that are hopefully going to come out of there and be pretty good. But yeah, so if you're in Central Ohio, hit me up. But otherwise, as of right now, it's not happening.
Corey and I talked about it last week. We did a whole thing about breeding fish, and I kind of harped on it a lot. Of one of the biggest challenges of breeding fish is getting rid of the fry. I mean, that's one of the most difficult things. And like you just alluded to, I mean, it's absolutely true. Shipping fish sucks. It just does. I mean, I did it for a living for several years. The anxiety from every single one of them is like all consuming. The expense of it and all of that, it is a lot. And if you are breeding like you are for fun, and like I'm doing right there in that tank right there, I got a breeding group yesterday. They're all going to be hybrids. Who cares? If you're doing it just for fun, once you get to that stage where you have to sell them, that can absolutely take the fun out of it. And so, to what I was kind of harping on last week was just make sure it's an easy fish to get rid of, and then you'll be okay. And it'll never become like a business type thing. It'll be more fun, and take them to aquarium clubs and stuff like that and sell them. So, so there you go. Okay. Chadley Bro, that's a cool name. That sounds like a rock star or something. Should I use sponge filters in my African cichlid tanks? And there is no name specified, so we can both go on that one. And you're the guest, so you get to go first.
Yes, Chadley, that name is awesome. If your parents gave you that name, you should thank them. So should you use sponge filters in an African cichlid tank or not? It just depends on a lot of things. Um, are you intending that to be your only method of filtration? What size tank? How many fish do you have in there? There's just a lot of factors. I run sponge filters. My entire fish room downstairs is run by a central air pump and sponge filters. If you have a decent sized fish room, that's usually the way to go. It's the cheapest way to go in terms of being able to filter the largest number of tanks. But if I'm just running just your most common, just you're running an African cichlid tank, I don't know if I'm going to go only with sponge filters. For me personally, it's because if I'm in a display tank, I don't love the look of a sponge filter in a display tank. But that's my preference. A lot of that's personal preference. So I would always run, canister filters or hang-on back filters, just because that you can, they're not as obtrusive in your tank as a sponge filter is if it's a display tank. So on that one, I'd have to defer to not necessarily knowing the specifics of your setup.
Yeah, the setup definitely does have a lot to do with it. I completely agree with everything that you just said. So why even answer it? But no, I was going to say, when Lisa and I set up our store, we bought like 400 of these. No, not that. It might have been. I don't know. We bought a lot of these, and we ran our entire store with the exception of our big display tanks. Like our 240, and if it was like a 55, we had probably 10 55s that would have 2 of these in them, and that was the only filtration. But mostly, it was 20-gallon tanks and 29s and stuff like that, and we ran them with a sponge filter, and they were perfectly fine. Completely agree with you. If you're going to be setting up multiple tanks, sponge filters are very economical, and they're a lot more efficient than you think too. The sponge in those sponge filters is like a cesspool for beneficial bacteria. I mean, it is an unbelievable platform to grow bacteria on. I don't even know what I'm saying here, but what a lot of people do, and what I'm considering doing in, well, probably all these tanks, I'm thinking about dropping one of these sponge filters into that log to keep stuff moving back there, behind there. But again, it's also another place to, grow beneficial bacteria, and that's never a bad thing. But a lot of people use them, and I'd be using them in this tank as like a water polisher, just another thing to draw very fine debris into the sponge filter. And it helps to keep your water a little bit more polished. They are very, very cheap. They're very efficient. I completely agree with you, though, Steve. If I'm setting up a 240-gallon display tank, I don't like calling them show tanks because we're not showing them to anybody. But if I'm setting up a masterpiece, my primary tank, I'm not going to have 18 sponge filters going across the back. That would just look a little bit silly. So primary source of filtration, no, not in your big tanks. But if you're going to have a bunch of secondary tanks, grow out tanks, hospital tanks, absolutely. And these right here, selfish plug, $8.99 on my website right now, up to 50 gallons. So there you go. Boom, commercial done. Let's go. Oh, they're sending us some questions today. This is a beautiful thing. Southern Cichlids. Finally, I can say somebody's name. And I have not proofread these questions, by the way, Steve. So if we get asked questions about weird stuff, it's not my fault. My mods are sending me weird questions. Southern Cichlids, Steve and John, are peacocks and haps the same, with the males being same way, females plain looking, and males colorful? I read that exactly how it's typed. Let me do it again. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Steve and John, are peacocks and haps the same, with the males being the same way, females plain looking, and males colorful?
I think I know what they're getting. I think I know what he's saying is.
Yeah, I think I do too. But go ahead.
Are peacocks and haps both the same in that the males are colorful and the females are, drab for the most part? Yeah, and that is true. Yeah, peacocks and haps are both that way. It's in Buna that where you don't have that.
It is, but then again, it isn't. If you consider there are some Nimbochromis, for example, Livingstoni, Venustus, Fusco. There are a few haps that the females closely resemble the males, but the males will still be more colorful. So it's not. It's more like Mbunas. You know, some of those haps are more like Mbunas, where and even yours, the Star Sapphire.
Yep.
The females are a pretty nice looking fish. Morii, there's quite a few hap females that look nice, but they still don't look as nice as the males. But peacocks, unless you're talking about OBs or dragon bloods, the females are usually ugly. I mean, that's just the way it is. But with haps, it just depends on the fish.
Yeah, definitely exceptions. I was just thinking back here. I have there's white lips. But again, that's Phoenochalalis or Placidochromis. So yeah, sorry, just white lips. We'll just we'll just say white lips. Yeah, again, it's the same thing where you definitely have exceptions, but the vast majority, I would say, yeah, it's that same deal.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, okay, let's go on a little sidebar here because I'm going to let the questions build up. We've got 4 more already that my wonderful mods have already sent to us. But let's go on a little sidebar here. Are you a scientific name cat, or are you a common name, or does it matter?
Oh man, it just depends. I've tried to learn them and get better at them, but like I'm with you. It's like, especially being on YouTube and trying to say some of these, I'm worried again, like if I say it wrong, somebody's going to get on my, get on my case, you know. But yeah, for the most part, I do just, I try to stick to the common names. It's just, yeah, they're easier to say. I can't, and I have to think it takes that extra minute of thought for me to say like, okay, what is this? You know, I mean, most of the peacocks are easier because it's just all in a car, whatever, but especially with the haps, it's like, yeah, it takes that. I'm not like Butch Livingston where I can just go, you know, rattle them off like it was like I was born saying it. You know, it's hard. So
Right.
yeah, I'm a common name guy.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with scientific names. If you're somebody that's what you do, that's cool. I'm not smart enough to be that to do that. You know, there's so many, especially when you get into the world of Africans. My God, I mean, there's like 1,400 what is it, registered, whatever, however you want to say it, or breeds of fish that come from Lake Malawi. It's absolutely outrageous, and there might even be more than that. I don't know. But not only is there the fear of saying it wrong, but I had experiences very early on in my time keeping fish where I would be at like fish stores or aquarium clubs or something, and you'd always have that old guy that would be like, that's a Placidochromis capritius, and I would feel almost inferior for not knowing what the hell he was talking about. You know what I mean? Like I would feel low because this guy's rattling off all of these scientific terms, and I'm like, that's just a goldfish. I don't know what you're talking about. It just kind of made me feel small when that was happening, and it takes a lot to make somebody this size feel small. But I mean, I was smaller when I was a kid. But anyway, my God, I'm getting goofy here. But there was, I don't know, there was kind of like, to me, very early on, I felt like there was an arrogance attached to people that talk that way. I'm not saying that there is. I'm just saying that was kind of the impression that was my perception of these old guys. And it just bothered me. And I think it stuck with me to this day of just, yeah, you know, that's a dragon blood. That's a Lawanda. That's this, that's that. I don't mess around. It doesn't make me feel smarter to know scientific names. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Jamie Myers, do different light colors affect the behavior of the African cichlids? I noticed mine are calmer with the white light, a little more aggressive with the blue light, and crazy with the red light.
You want me to start?
Sure.
I don't know that I've noticed a huge difference in aggression with the specific color of the light, more with the level of brightness. So if you just hit them with super bright lights, not only are you going to have other algae issues and things like that, but you're going to, I've noticed you're going to have more, you tend to have more aggression. I see you're cycling that color back there. Yeah, and I've got this 125 over here. I've got the current satellite LED on it, and it can do all the bells and whistles of colors, and it can do all the crazy, even the lightning strikes and all that, which I definitely recommend you do not do the lightning strikes. I said in a video one time, my kids love them, the lightning strikes, but the fish hate it. Now I'll say this: I don't like what you've got going on behind you, and maybe you got to talk so that people can see it, so I don't sound crazy.
I went ahead and turned the red on just to be funny,
Yeah. And I could grab for a remote and do it too, but I won't steal your thunder. So I don't tend to do like what you've got there, like where I go all red or even all blue. I'm usually always at some type of a mix. So I don't know. I don't know if I would say whether, like, if I try that, if they would. I haven't noticed it myself, but maybe if you've run like one specific color like that, if you've noticed anything crazy happening, I don't know.
Personally, I have not. Now I've got yellow on, and it seems like it's flickering in the camera. It's not in person, but I haven't noticed a difference in behavior. That's just me, though. I mean, this one has all of these colors that I can turn them off. I can make it green. I mean, and I'm sure Steve's lights do this too. You can select the individual colors or a combination of a bunch of colors. I have not noticed a difference in behavior at all in lighting. I agree with you, though. I think that the temperature of the lighting, the what's the word I'm looking for? The amount of light can certainly affect the mood. I keep mine like this, just full bright all the time. I just like it. That's just the full spectrum, all of them on, and I like it. I like the way it looks. I hate what it does about how I have to clean off algae every 2 days. But I like it to be nice and bright. So, but as far as differences of behavior, I've not seen that. All right. So now, Steve, you're up there in Ohio. There's a football game on tonight. I don't know if you're a football guy, but
I am a Bengals fan, the mighty Bengals of Cincinnati, and they are playing tonight. But I honestly, other than just being so excited for football to start back up again, I don't watch a ton of preseason. Especially if you've watched Hard Knocks, they're doing all kinds of, like, it's almost not a real game. Like, their goal is not to go out and necessarily win the game like a normal game. It's to, like, try out all these different things and players and combination of players and see all these things. And unless you really know all of that, I mean, it's fun to watch. It's better than not watching football.
Absolutely.
But, like, I'm not, I'm not over here crying that I can't be watching my team right now.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't matter to me until the games mean something. But the only reason I brought that up is because, you took, well, you didn't, but the Browns took Robert Griffin, and he's having a hard time right now in his personal life. But tonight is his first appearance as a Brown. So I was trying to just find it while you were talking, and I can't find it on the TV. But the reason why I brought this up is because the next question is from one of my favorite commenters, because his name is Redskins Fan Forever. Hey guys, I'm getting a 300-gallon. Woohoo! Was wondering what you would suggest to put in it. I know cichlids, but what type, and also what substrate and decor. Now, I think every single person that's watching this right now is going to know exactly what I'm going to say. I think what you and I are going to say is different. I mean, because I'll go ahead and take this first, and then I'll let you have your time. I am a believer, because I've done it so many times, in the fully mixed tank. It works. Yes, imbunas can be little jerks, but so can peacocks and haps. I'm a mixed tank guy, mainly Malawian, because I hate to offend all of my Tanganyikan people, but they're just prettier than Tanganyikan fish. Maybe not prettier than Victorian, but the variety and the accessibility of them and the price of them is way better than Tanganyikans. Doesn't mean they're better fish, but I like the full gambit. I like Peacock's Habs and Bunas, gives you a lot of variety. I like it to look just like that. As far as decor, I mean, everybody with African cichlids goes with rocks and all of that kind of stuff. There's quite a few companies out there that sell the stuff kind of like that. Universal Rocks, I mean, again, I'll plug myself all night long. But obviously, I'm a fan of that company. So, yeah, I mean, it's a 300-gallon tank. When you're keeping African cichlids, absolutely the sky is the limit. You could do anything you want. And don't be afraid. This is going to be, you know, there's people that'll agree with me 100%, and there'll be others that would say, oh, what a waste. Don't be afraid to do all one kind of fish. Even if you're an African cichlid person. Like I was saying before, one of the prettiest tanks I've ever seen was a tank fully stocked with yellow labs. You want to talk about a cheap tank. But then there's another guy, one of my mods in here tonight, Kevin Green, has a tank full of nothing but frontosas. It's one of the prettiest tanks you'll ever see in your life. So sky is absolutely the limit. You can do whatever you want to do. But I think that Steve Poland might have kind of a different answer than mine. I don't know. We'll have to see.
No, the problem is I have almost that same answer. I was going to say it could be really cool in a 300 to do a species-only tank, and the one I was going to say was Frontosa. You could really do an awesome Frontosa tank because they can get so big, but in a 300, I mean, I guess it depends on the dimensions of that 300. If it's like a super compact, tall 300 as opposed to although how tall could your 300 be really? It's still going to be pretty wide. You could do, you really do. That's like kid in a candy store territory when you get to 300 gallon. One thing I'll say on substrate that, because I've tried different substrates, and what I've started to go to, because I did play sand and I did pool filter sand, and those are fine. You got to rinse them like crazy, although that's almost every substrate. But man, that sand, it was just so dusty. It's like my rule of thumb is wash your substrate until you think it's done and clear, and then like in a bucket or whatever, and then do it 3 more times. Once you think you're like, okay, I'm done for sure, 3 more times.
Completely agree.
You're never, it's never that good. And it's so annoying to try and get it clear once it's in there. And I've actually started, and it's pricey, like ridiculously pricey, but I've started using this Carib Sea African cichlid mix, and I really like it a lot. I like the way it looks. I like the grain size, although I actually have a couple of slightly different grain sizes in these 2 tanks. And I would advise to go with, if you can, a larger grain size, not like big, it's not like gravel or something, but just like slightly bigger, because it tends to have less dust and be less likely to get sucked up in your filter. But it's pricey. Like I said, and they do have it on Amazon and stuff, which is usually a little better than a local fish store. Cause I mean, it's like everything, it's going to be cheaper probably than it is at your local fish store, but it's a good product, because I've found that a lot of that play sand, or pool filter sand, it really, like it's almost too fine and too compact, and you get these pockets. And I feel like the look of this, like you'd think, oh, it's whatever, it's just sand, like all sand is the same. It's really not. If you get a chance to look at this stuff in person, it really is a beautiful product.
No, I agree. I had the exact sand you're talking about, the African cichlid mix from Carib Sea. I liked it. It had every single kind of substrate, even a bare bottom tank, has pros and cons. And the first con to think about with any sand, I don't care if you're using pool filter sand like I've put in here, or play sand or whatever. Play sand and pool filter sand are usually at about the same price. I would definitely go pool filter over play sand. It doesn't have as much dirt in it, and it is a larger granule, I guess you could call it, than play sand usually is. Maybe not. I mean, I got my substrate here. The biggest selling point for this, that right there in a 125-gallon tank, it's about that thick, $18. I mean, so that you can't buy one bag of the Carib Sea stuff for that much. So, but anyway, aside from all of that, this guy's buying a 300-gallon tank, so he's got money. He's going to put some money into it. You can definitely dump some money into substrate. Sand, you're going to have the pros and cons of, the poop is all going to lay on the top, going to need good water flow to direct the poop to where you want it to go. You do have the issue with maintenance of it coming up into your hose, whatever it is that you're using to do your water changes and things like that. But as far as the look goes, if you're trying to go with a natural look, then there's nothing more natural than sand. So it's definitely the serious aquarist. They almost all go to sand. I mean, it's kind of like one of those rites of passage. You almost have to do that. But I've got gravel in there and I like it. I don't know. I might switch it over to sand. Who knows? But yeah, all good points. I mean, sand has its pros and cons, but as far as the look goes, I've said this for years. Well, ever since I've had a YouTube channel, my favorite look in an aquarium is sand. My favorite to maintain is gravel.
Oh, yeah, no question.
Yeah, I mean, the sand looks the best, but gravel is just a no-brainer. My least favorite for African cichlids is bare bottom, just because of common sense. I mean, they never stop pooping and eating, and you're just going to have a slate of poop going across the bottom of your tank. So, all right. So yeah, and Redskins fan forever. You're a good dude. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, yeah. 2 different people sent me the same question. That's why I was like, wait a second. Okay. Oh boy, this guy's going to get me in trouble. Diggs Ketley, and IFG, the Inquisitive Fish guy, which will be next week's guest, sent me this, and he's trying to get me in trouble. I know that guy. He's sneaky. He sent me Diggs, this person's question. What's your guys' opinion on keeping wild-caught Africans? I'm going to let you have this first, Steve, and then I'm going to make everybody mad at me.
How do I want to answer this? I'm trying to think about how you're going to answer it first.
So you can steal my thunder, huh?
No, because I don't want to say something and have you be like, oh, I totally disagree completely. I mean, I guess that'd be
I don't work that way. You and I can have differing opinions, and it's totally cool with me. I'm fine with that.
I know. Oh, by the way, hey, IFG, how you doing? Looking forward to next week. It's interesting. I have one wild caught breeding group of red shoulder peacocks. My male wild caught is the best fish I own by far. He's gorgeous. I don't have a lot of experience with other wild caught fish or seeing them. So I can really only speak to kind of the idea of them and some of the things that I know about the state of the companies that are collecting from the lakes over there. There are some concerns. There are some ecological concerns going on right now. The lake, I believe all the lakes have receded quite a bit, which is making it more difficult, and just overfishing those lakes is a concern. So for me personally, I don't think it's like if everything was perfect, if you could really strictly regulate like they do in a lot of fisheries around the world, if you could really regulate what was coming out of that lake to make sure that you aren't wiping anything out, then I feel like I would be okay with it. But my concern is that is not happening, for one. And so I tend to feel like if you're going to get wild caught fish, I would prefer it if it was for breeding, right? So like I said, the wild caught group that I have, I'm breeding them. So it's allowing me to essentially use them for a purpose other than just my own enjoyment. If you have wild caught fish and you're not, they're just your fish in your display, or in your display aquarium, like that's okay. I'm not like condemning you for it. I tend to feel like as stressful as it is for those fish to make that journey. And if you haven't watched videos about that process or haven't seen how that goes and just all of the steps that they go through, and I mean, we're keeping them in boxes. Like we can't judge like completely that they're being mistreated in any way. Like I said, we're keeping them in a box that's not a lake, but they go through a lot of stress to make it over here. That's why they're so expensive. So I feel like if you're going to keep wild caught fish, if you can do it for breeding purposes, that's probably preferable. And if you don't know about the state of the collection over there, Malawi specifically, but all of the Rift Lakes, learn about that maybe before you go to try and acquire a bunch of wild caught fish.
Well said, my friend. I mean, not the same as what I'm going to say. Mine is a little bit different, and I'm a little bit more blunt. I mean, you're a nice guy, and I'm not. So, the analogy that I like to use is: have you ever known anybody? Have you ever met anyone? Have you ever even heard a story of anyone catching a wild bird and putting them in a small cage and keeping them in their house? You haven't heard that story. And the reason why is because no one would look at that as humane. You've got a bird that has access to the world. It can do what every human being has always dreamt of being able to do, fly anywhere, and you're going to take it away and put it into a small cage. It's just not the right thing to do. I look at wild caught fish the same way. Now, let me clarify this a little bit. I don't look down on anybody. I'm not going to stand outside of your house with a picket and call PETA. And I'm not that kind of person. I'm not poo-pooing anybody who does keep wild caught fish. Like you said, I'm not going to condemn you personally if you're watching this and you have wild caught fish. But my personal answer is I think it's wrong. I mean, you're going to take a fish, like Steve said, you're going to put it through absolute hell, traveling from the lake, which was their paradise, and bringing it into your little 30-gallon box. That's just mean. Not only the torture of the travel, but then also keeping them in the box. I just, to me, that's the hardest thing that I struggle with when it comes to wild caught fish. Now, we can all be accused of that because we're all keeping these animals that if they were ever in the wild would have access to, however many square miles Lake Malawi is. But the thing is, there's not a fish that I own that has ever seen a lake. They've been in a glass box or a concrete vat their entire life, so they don't know anything any different. And so, you still want to do the right thing for those fish. Try to get as big a tank as possible and take as good a care of the tank as possible. But all they've ever known is being inside of these containers. You take a fish that has access to infinite space and trap them in a small box. That doesn't agree with me. That whole idea doesn't agree with me. Have I had wild caught fish? I have. And I didn't like it because I felt bad, but that's just the kind of person I am. I'm a softie like that. Anybody that's watched any of my videos, the way I am. I don't cull fish. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not somebody that goes out there and hunts for sport and all that kind of stuff. No, that's just not me. But anybody who does, I'm cool with that. We can still be friends, but I'm just not, that's not for me. That's not the way I do things. And with fish, to me, the only thing that gets people to buy wild caught is people in your situation, Steve, where you're bringing them in to breed them. I think that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Or the novelty of it. To be able to say, this is wild caught. That was why I bought the fish that I had, and then I felt like a schmuck because it's like somebody came in and they were like, oh, really? You took them out of a 100,000 square foot mile, 100,000 square mile lake and put them into this little box, huh? That's nice. Cool. So anyway, I'm rambling now, and this is all about Steve Poland. So I gotta get off my high horse here, but that's my thoughts. Again, anybody who feels differently about it is totally fine. I'm just not, it's not my thing. And the guy asked us, so I give him my answer. Fast and fearless. Should African cichlids have a mix of flake food for their diet, or is it okay to just feed them pellets all the time? I'm going to let you have that one again. I'm not going to piss anybody off with this one, I promise. But since you're the guest, I will let you have this one first.
Yeah, you can feed them pellets all the time. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think I've heard you say this before, and I know it's true. If you look at fish farms, big fish farms, people who's living, like literally they're putting food on the table by raising fish, feeding fish. They feed them, pellets or whatever they feed them. They feed them same thing all the time. I think a lot of people get hung up on variety of diet. I think it, maybe there are some species specific exceptions to that. If you're keeping something that has like real specific diet requirements, but for the most part, you pick something that's good, feed it to them, feed them the right amount, the right, frequency, and you're fine.
I don't even need to expand on it, because I'm basically going to say the exact same thing. And yes, I would have used the fish farm to make the point too. It's true. Having said that, though, the only thing that I will add is I don't think there's anything wrong with mixing things up, and I don't think you do either, Steve. But there are a lot of people that I feed them this in the morning and this in the afternoon and this at night. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think you're doing anything wrong if you do that. But at the same note, I also don't think you're doing anything wrong if you feed them the same pellets every meal, however many times you feed them. They're fine. Just like Steve said, I've been there at the farms when they do the feeding, and not only do they feed them the same pellets every time, but you're talking about a farm that has Tanganyikans, Malawans, peacocks, haps, and Bunas, Victorians, and they throw the same foods in every single tank. There are so many hardcore fish food people, and God bless them. We need hardcore people in every facet of every hobby. And it's not that those people are wrong. It's just there's a lot of ways to do it. And I'm one of those people that I believe keep it easy, keep it simple. And it's the most important thing is that your fish are eating the food. I'm not poo-pooing ingredients and all that kind of stuff. My God, I shouldn't have even said that word because of something that happened recently in the Tank Talk group. But, do what you want to do, but at the end of the day, I feel like if the fish eat it, that's the most important thing. And they can eat the same thing every single meal and be fine.
Yeah. Oh, hey, one more thing on that point real quick that I will say is our buddy IFG, I believe, has a good video on that exact topic if you're looking for more information.
Yeah, and you know what? IFG, one of the things I love about that guy, first of all, he's a good dude, but he said, I'm not even going to try to say what it is that he says, but he says something that's just brilliant at the end of every single video, and I intentionally don't want to memorize it because I'm just afraid I would steal it. It's that good. But the thing that he says at the end of every video, where he says, make each opinion is your own or whatever, and get multiple opinions before you determine your opinion, whatever. I don't know what he says, but everybody has an opinion. God knows fish keepers have opinions on every single aspect of this hobby. Steve and I are giving you our opinions right now, and that's all they are, is opinions. I'm not stating anything as fact, nor is he. We're just telling you about our experiences and our opinions. And IFE says it best. I'm going to make sure he says it multiple times next week. Okay, Blake Hillenbrand, can you have a planted tank with African cichlids in a 75-gallon? Go.
Planted tank with African cichlids in a 75-gallon. You can. I'm not a planted tank guy, so it's tough for me to really speak authoritatively on this subject of plants really at all. But depending on the plant, a lot of African cichlids are just going to eat it up, rip it out. We talked about substrate earlier. The substrate, once you put it in the tank, that is the last amount of control you have over it. They will,
especially in an African cichlid tank.
Yeah, they will do what they want with it. And if you have plants in that substrate, well, that just goes all along with it. They're going to do whatever they want. So can you do it? Sure. You just got to know what you're doing. And me personally, I don't know enough what I'm doing to even attempt that. I wouldn't try it.
Yeah, the reason why, and I'm no plant expert either. This tank right here looks pretty good. I've just put plants in it yesterday from Aquarium Co-op. Hopefully these make it. Still got some more in there. Anyway, I'm no plant expert at all. I'm hitting Corey McElroy up every single day. Oh my God, oh my God. So I don't know anything about plants, but what I do know is Your question, I look at it from a common sense standpoint. There is a reason why you see platies and tetras and, some of your docile cichlids like angels, discus, rams, stuff like that. There's a reason why almost every planted tank you see has those kind of fish in it, and that's because those fish won't bother the plants. The biggest reason why, and just like Steve said, the biggest reason why you don't see plants in a lot of like hardcore cichlids tanks, Africans, South Central American, big monster cichlids, is not because the plants are going to hurt them or anything. It's just because the cichlids are going to hurt the plants. They're going to rip them up. They're going to tear them apart. If you've got embonas, some of your embonas will nibble on the plants and eat them. And so it's one of those things that it's not good for the plants because they're just going to get torn up and ripped apart and eaten in some cases. Now, having said that, Corey has told me he has made it one of his life's missions to put plants in this tank. I still don't know how I'm going to feel about it, but it's what he wants to do. So stay tuned there, Blake, because you never know. There might be plants in that thing right there. So, all right, G Trapper. Oh, this is one of those things that it's everybody's opinion. I don't know that there's a rule. How thick do you put your substrate?
Yeah, I don't know if there's definitely a hard and fast rule on this one. You're right. I think it needs to go up above the bottom lip of your tank for sure. Depending on the size of your tank, that can be, a couple inches. Beyond that, like I said, I struggle sometimes with both of these tanks. I probably could use a little more because when they get to rearranging, they'll leave some spots and it'll hit the bottom. Yeah, you got to have a good couple inches in there at the very least, or else, they're really going to do a number on it. But there's no right answer. And unfortunately, it's a lot of times it just comes down to budget and what kind of substrate you put in there. If you're doing like what John was saying, where you can get, some sand that's on the less expensive side and you can make that work and you can get a lot more of it. But if you go and splurge on it, it can get expensive real quick. So, but I don't think there's no rule on that. It's just in some ways it's decor. The fish need it. You got to generally have something down there unless you're doing an intentional bare bottom tank. And then it's like any other decor. It's like, how do you like how it looks? Maybe you like a real thick bed of sand, but since we're not planting it, it's different that way.
Yeah, that was the only thing I was going to add to it was I've got in that tank right there probably, if I was to go completely flat all the way across, probably 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches, somewhere around there. There's 120 pounds of pool filter sand in there. And to me, it's thick for what I'm used to doing. But I did that on purpose. You probably can't tell in the video. Maybe you can see it like right there a little bit. I kind of have it built up into like little mounds where some of the plantings are. And so, you're for a situation like that, you want it a little bit thicker, but this is an all African cichlid show. So on the topic of African cichlids, Steve hit it on the head. You're not going to be the one that dictates where this substrate is. Your fish are. They're going to clear it out. They're going to make their little territories. They're going to make their little spawning sites. Yes, they will do that even if it's an all male tank. And when they want to make that spawning site, they will take it all the way down to the glass. So, the more you have, the more these massive mounds are going to get built up in your tank. That's what happened in my 240. I think I put, I want to say like 220 pounds of sand of the African cichlid mix that you use, Steve, in my 240, which was an 8-foot by 2-foot tank. And there were like 4-inch thick mounds that the fish would build and cover up rocks and everything else. So it can be a hassle. I don't think that there's any particular rule. My personal preference, if I'm just setting up a tank like that one, there is just enough gravel in there to cover the bottom. That's what I go for. I'm not really using the substrate as a real focal point in that tank. For me, it's the rocks and the tree stump, but that's what I do. Is just enough, and it's a pretty good size gravel that I have in there too, a standard aquarium gravel size. It's not very thick at all. So there you go. That's my long-winded way of answering that. Oh, this is a good one. What can you do to eliminate my fish from being so shy or always hiding? That's a good one. I'm going to let you have first, Steve, and I'm going to step away for a second. So go on with this one. I don't have any problems. I have to pee. I'm just being honest. We're wide open here, folks. So I had my dinner earlier. I'm going to run upstairs and take care of business real quick. I'll be right back. So take your time on this answer.
Yeah. Well, nature calls. When nature calls, you have to answer.
That's right.
Yeah. So let me talk to you for a minute here about John. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that to him while he's gone. So if your fish are being shy, I'd say the first thing is, it goes with all these questions. It's like, well, what specific type of fish? I mean, hopefully we're talking about African cichlids here. What is your tank setup like? Because a lot of times, I mean, African cichlids, they're aggressive. They move around a lot. They don't typically hide except in some circumstances. Okay. So, do you have a dominance issue? Like, are the fish that are hiding, could they be being bullied? Which different, like in terms of, do you have males, all males, or are there males and females in the tank? Could it be, or do you have females that are hiding from males because the males are chasing them to spawn all the time? That could be a reason that they're being shy or hiding. It really, again, it could be so many different things. You know, if it's Mbuna, they're cave dweller. I mean, that's what Mbuna means, is cave dweller, basically. So they might be more likely to be what you might deem as shy, but really they're just, if you've given them the appropriate hiding spots, then maybe they're just taking advantage of them. There's just a lot of different things that could be going on. John, I was going to dog you. You were gone. I was just going to start talking about you and saying all these crazy things, but I decided to be cool and not do that.
Well, I
It's
appreciate it.
away.
As if I haven't made myself look bad enough. But I mean, hey, I'm enjoying myself here, and I didn't want to cut it off early. Go like, I gotta go. So I'm like, you know what? You and I are very similar in that we take quite a bit of time to answer our questions. So I knew you could hold down the fort while I had to go and do what I had to do. So, all right, I did not hear your whole answer. I came in for the last few words. I will give my opinion on this. Steve, say something real quick so that I can show people your tank.
Okay. I'm talking. The Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Just
okay. Now let's start talking realistic here. Okay, so you saw Steve's tank there. I wanted to show that for a particular reason. The tank that is on his left, which is our right, beautiful. It's gorgeous, and he only has a few rocks in there. He has not provided that tank, even though they're peacocks and haps, which generally aren't, you know, much of hiders anyway. There's not a lot of opportunity to hide in that tank. There is a lot of, I'm one of these people. I know there's a lot of people that are against me on this, and that's fine. But I'm one of these people that I think that sometimes people go a little bit overboard when it comes to decor, because they've heard that African cichlids need hiding places. You go to the pet store and that's what they tell you. Oh, you got to give them somewhere to hide so that if there's aggression, they'll, you know, retreat and they have somewhere to go. There is some truth to that, but when you provide them with all of these hiding places, first of all, you run into the problem that you're asking about, but you also give them something to fight over. Because if you have these territories that they're claiming as their own, somebody's going to come in there and want to take it from them. And so you're giving them something to fight over. You know, you put a room full of 12 dudes and everything's going to be fine. You throw a chick in there and all the dudes are going to start fighting over that chick. That's just the way nature works. If you provide the fish with somewhere to hide, they're going to fight over that. That's just what it is. So my answer to that, whether it's Mbunas, peacocks, haps, frontal, I don't care what it is, eliminate some of the hiding places. I mean, that's kind of, I know that seems like common sense, and there are some people that would say that that's cruel to do that. I don't think it's cruel at all. I've never, in my time keeping African cichlids, even Mbunas, I've never noticed there being more aggression because of having less hiding places. I've actually noticed aggression decrease because of the lack of hiding spaces to fight over. So I hope that makes sense. And I answered that a lot faster than I thought I was going to. Usually run my mouth a whole lot longer. What type of sand do you use? We've already talked about that. And that's from Vaughn Pruce. I hope I'm saying his name right. I don't know. I'm going to answer the question for you, Steve, because he asked you. It's the African Cichlid mix from Carib Sea. That's what Steve uses. And he's a customer of mine. He's bought my food and everything, so I like that guy. Ordered twice. I like that guy a lot. Fast and Fearless, again, asks another question. Is there any African cichlids that you won't keep in your tank for one reason or another? That is a great question. Ooh, I got to think about that for a minute.
Oh man, I have a list. Like not like a super specific list, but I have some general guidelines that I've given for myself, because I am an addict. I'm an African cichlid addict. I'm the first one to admit it. And so if I don't at least have some limitations on myself, like I'll just go crazy. I mean, I've already gone crazy, but so a few things that I've decided, at least for now, not to keep, or my random rules. First of all, and these are great fish. A lot of people love them. IFG loves them. We just have a different taste on this, and I know you like them too. I'm just not into the predator haps. A lot of the ones that you mentioned earlier, the compressiceps, the Malawi trouts, like that's just me. There's nothing wrong with them versus any of these other fish. They're just not. I just don't love the way they look. Just, preference, just like somebody, there's probably tons of people out there, maybe people watching this, who just don't even like the way African cichlids look at all. They keep a totally different type of fish. It's all personal preference. So that's one that I can just like flat out eliminate, like the ones that are almost more like torpedo looking. That's just not something that I'm into. I've made a no albino rule. Again, like I'm just not into albinos, but it helps me, right? Because it like at least cuts some out that I don't have to get. And then my last rule that I broke recently, and it was a mistake, even though I love the way they look, just like you do, is OBs, no OBs. I broke my rule. I got an OB peacock. He was amazing. Probably the most beautiful fish I owned. Terrorized my tank, chased to the point where like I couldn't keep him. Like there was no place that I could put him where he wouldn't just, and maybe I just needed more OBs and they'd all just like, maybe I'd get a more stable environment for him at that point. But like I had that OB. He was awesome, but he just like chased it around. So I've got to like go back to my no OB rules. So that's it for me. It's like, I mean, talking in terms of African cichlids, like fish that I won't keep, those are like my kind of my three rules. But other than that, I mean, pretty much any peacock, any hap that's not like a predator hap, anything that's not albino, I'll probably buy it from you. It's not good.
Wow, you just rolled out like half of the hot. You just made yourself look like a real jerk. I'm not the only one. That's good. No, I'm teasing you. I'm being funny. And I can say that because I don't have anything on my list when it comes to African cichlids. Like Steve said, we all have our own opinions. He doesn't like predator haps. I do. IFG does. He doesn't like OBs, and I get it. I totally get it. I know the reputation that they have. I know that that they can be terrorists. I mean, I know that. I've got 6 of them in there, and none of them would bother anybody. But I know that there's a big reputation behind that fish, so I totally get it. For me, though, when it comes to Africans, I don't have any. I don't have any that I would not keep. There's quite a few that I haven't kept that I would want. And, maybe that's something we'll just make up our own question. We'll say, if you could have anyone, which one would it be? That'd be a fun one and probably require a little bit of thought. But I don't know that there's one that I wouldn't keep. In all honesty, I really don't. So let's flip that around, Steve. If you could have any African cichlid, and don't tell me a show specimen, no, I mean a fish that you've never had, African cichlid, because this is the African cichlid show. What would it be? Anything out of Lake Malawi or Tanganyika or anything. You're muted, Steve.
Yeah, I was muted. I knew I was going to do that one of these times. That's tough. So I have to consult my phone to my peacock and hap wish list, because we all have to have a list of things. And I'm like psycho about lists in my phone. And because I've kept so many of these already, it's like I gotta go to this to think, okay, what do I not, what have I not had? I think the one that stands out for me is a white knight fryer eye, like a straight up just white, like all white, like one of the good ones. Like there are some that are like some bad strains out there, but it's one of the really good white knights I think would be a cool fish to have, because I've never had that. The other one would be I've had some German reds, some of the red fish, but to have like a really good deep red like Roter Kaiser, one of those, again, that's, it's line bred out of Germany. I think having one of those is on my list too.
Man, that's a hard one for me because like you, I mean, I've had almost all of them. I mean, if you want to go like fantasy, isn't the Malawi gar would be pretty something substantial to have that I don't know that anybody in the hobby has ever had one. And then in Tanganyika, isn't there the Emperor Cichlid from Tanganyika that gets like that big? I don't know that anybody has ever had either one of those in the hobby. I could be wrong about the gar, but those, yeah, those are kind of fantasy fish there. I mean, I'm going to say the same thing I said before. A full-grown male trout. That's the one. Champsochromis caeruleus. That's the one for me. That's the one that I want. I don't care if Steve doesn't like predator haps. He'll like mine because that's just the way it's going to have to be. But I mean, that's the fish that has eluded me forever. And I've seen these videos on YouTube or these absolutely sensational, giant, 16-inch long, bright blue, flowing fins. I think it's the prettiest African cichlid on the planet. And so I have one. I don't know if it's a male yet. I'm going to keep riding James Largo until it turns out that he turns blue and all of that. Got my fingers crossed. I'm going to keep doing it. That's the one that, I mean, nobody asked us this. This is just me asking this question. So that would be the one for me. All right. I don't know anything about Julie's, Gelitochromis. Looking to keep Julie's in a 50-gallon. Any advice on tank mates and plants? They kind of have the reputation of like being real jerks, don't they? I mean, I think they're one of those fish that kind of has the rep like OBs do. Like they're just nasty is what I thought. I've never had them, so I don't know.
Yeah, I've never had them either. I think you're right though. Yeah, that's tough. I really try not to like throw out opinions. Like that's the one thing I will not throw out an opinion on something I've never kept or don't really know anything about. I mean, I'm definitely, and I know that you're less so, but I'm stumpable for sure. Like, yeah.
Oh, no, I am not less. Oh, no, I'm not. Every single week it happens to me, particularly in Facebook, because I'm a little bit more laid back in there. And I'll just look at the camera and say, I don't know. I mean, that's just, if I don't know something, I'm not going to make something up because I just think that's the wrong thing to do. I know Julie's are really cool. They're long and, I mean, they don't get huge, but they're a longer, I don't know how you describe it, barracuda-like, but small. They're cool-looking fish, but I have heard, not from experience, I have heard that they can be nasty. I was at a pet store in Richmond, Virginia, 8 years ago, and they had a breeding group of them, and I was like, that'd be cool. Maybe I'll breed those. They're rare, and the guy wanted some stupid amount of money for them, which was just absolutely offensive. Like, I mean, like $700 for like 8 of these stupid fish. I was like, you're out of your mind. I'm out of here. So that you learned nothing from me telling you that, but I'm just saying that's thought I'd throw that out there. Okay, so the other guy asked a question. No, not the other guy. That other guy, Steve/John. Have either of you ever kept Tropheus? If so, did they work? Aggression, issues, etc. I've got an interesting story on that. I'm going to let you have it first, though, Steve.
No, I have no story because I've never kept Tropheus. So this one's all you.
Why did I ask this guy to come on to my live show? He's embarrassing me. Okay. I have kept Tropheus. I'm keeping Tropheus right now. In fact, yeah, okay, I can't find him. We could sit here all night. I can't find him. He's in there somewhere. I have a Tropheus du Bois in there. That's how I say it. You might say it differently. The ones that start off absolutely adorable with the black fish with the white polka dots, yeah, they turn into a half white, half black fish. Got them in there. The interesting story about him is we sold him to a customer when he was cute and adorable and little white polka dots. And that fish, when it grew to mature size, to adult size, started terrorizing his tank. And so he brought it back in a bag, and literally his exact words, "You can have this sumbitch back." That's what his exact words to me were. And so, I mean, I took him. What am I going to do? I'm not going to throw the fish away. So took him, and he's moved around a little bit, but he is in there. Never bothers anybody. He doesn't chase anybody around any more than any of the other fish do in there. However, Tropheus do kind of have the reputation similar to Mbuna's, but just from Lake Tanganyika. They can be aggressive. They can work in groups and, terrorize other fish and stuff like that. So what was the original? Okay, just have we kept them? Yes, I've kept them. I have not had any significant issues with them, but don't let that be what convinces you to go out and get them, because I might have just gotten lucky. Actually, that's the second Du Bois that I've had at adult size, and that just is what it is. I haven't had any bad luck with them. I've had a lot of fish that didn't work out in other people's tanks that worked fine in mine. Doesn't have anything to do with my tank. It just has to do with the setting, and they get comfortable with the fish that they're in there. Another interesting story about the Du Bois that's in there right now. I wish I could point them out to you, but my tank, Steve, I don't even know if you're aware of this. I had a 150-gallon African cichlid tank that had just some unbelievable fish in it crash last year, early in the year last year. One of the worst experiences of my life as a fish keeper. There was, I don't know, probably 45 fish in that tank. All but one died, and it was that Du Bois. Was the only fish that survived that tank crash. So that Du Bois has been through a lot and never had any problems out of them. So there you go.
I remember that. We were all very sad about that. That was a bummer. Didn't a pleco survive too, or no? Am I thinking of something else?
Maybe. I mean, plecos, you can take a pleco out on a leash and drag it down the sidewalk and put it back in your tank and it survive. I mean, plecos, they're kind of like made of stainless steel and indestructible, but it may have been. I don't recall if a pleco survived that, but the Du Bois definitely is the only one that we still have that we had back then. Okay, this is the last one, and we've been going for an hour and a half, so maybe, we'll do this one and then maybe start to wrap things up a little bit. Oh, well, this one. Steve and John, what are the most aggressive African cichlids? We've kind of already gone there, but this ought to be fun. I'm going to let you have it first.
Well, I mean, for the most part, I think the reputation is Mbuna, and especially what you talked about DeMace and I earlier. DeMace and I are very aggressive. Kenyai are very aggressive. Oh man, I kept both of those and definitely saw a lot of aggression. Oh yeah, there's so many of those that can really go after. But I mean, Malawi eye biter, another one that hops to mind. There's a reason it's called the eye biter, because it will take out the eye of another fish, like just boom. It's a lot of it. There are, I guess, some that are maybe known for being a little more laid back. Like if you're talking about Mbuna, yeah, I mean, maybe yellow labs are known for being more laid back, that kind of thing. But if you get them in the right situation, you have females in there, you can get aggression out of just about any African cichlid. It can go bad on you fast. That's really one of the saddest things about keeping this type of fish. There are so many upsides, but that's one of the big downsides is the aggression, and just you can have a fish that it can be your favorite fish and it can look perfect. One day you can go to bed and you can wake up and that fish is dead and you have no idea. It's most likely aggression, and you have no idea who did it, like which fish did it. You have no idea why. It's So really, they all have the potential to really do a lot of damage.
This is why I asked this guy to be on this show, folks, because him and I just think very much alike. I completely agree with that, and I will expand on it a little bit. There are stories out there of every single African cichlid ruining a tank. There's trust me, there's stories out there. The ones that you hear the most of would be the ones he said. The Didicomps, the Dimitochromis compressiceps, eye biters, Malawi eye biters. There I go with scientific names. What am I doing here? Demasoni, just like he said. Yes, it's pronounced Demasoni. Red zebras, Kenyai, OB peacocks. These are all fish that have reputations of being assholes from time to time. I mean, it's 9:30 at night. Come on, we can say that word. But I'm the guy that would tell you that for every story out there of one fish destroying a tank, there's 100 stories of those fish getting along completely fine with all of the other fish in the tank. So just like Steve said, I mean, there's so many factors involved. You really can't classify one in particular. I think that somebody, down the road or way back, it said, oh man, my OB peacock was a jerk. And then somebody, oh yeah, really? Well, I had one. And then, oh yeah, I had one. And all of a sudden it turns into this stigma attached to OB peacocks. I've had in my lifetime, I guarantee you 1,000 OB peacocks, including the ones that we had in the store. And I've had some that were assholes. I've had some that were the victims of abuse from other assholes. I mean, it's like I've had a bit of everything with every kind of fish. I've had yellow labs attack other fish. You really don't know. But I'm gonna end it because I'm just gonna go all night long. This is something I'm passionate about. For every story that there is somebody, one particular type of fish that has destroyed a tank, there's 100 stories that they didn't. So that's the way to do it. There's nothing really more that can be said. And of course, there's a couple of really important questions that have come in, Steve, that we have to go to. Even though I said before these are the last ones. This one is, I mean, it has to be asked. And it is by, I'm going to go ahead and say that the name is Yao Ming Yen. Is Steve a DC or a Marvel fan?
Man, that's a loaded question. So, all right. Are we talking about comics or movies? That's the thing, right? I mean, I feel like right now, or TV shows. Because
I think we need to go cinematic universe, television, movies. If you go comics, there'll be people threatening our lives. So let's keep it away from comics. Let's go straight television and movies.
I'm sad with the DC cinematic universe because I tend to, I won't get into comics, but I tend to be more of a DC fan. And so I wish I could say that the DC movies are better, but I don't know anybody who would think that. I've never heard anybody say that, especially now that Suicide Squad was, well, I haven't seen it, but I haven't heard very many good things. That's a bummer. And what's crazy to me is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the core, the actual, what they call the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I think you have to exclude, although it's getting a little murky now, but you have to exclude X-Men, and I think Deadpool, and what else is excluded? And Spider-Man, although I think that's crossing over now. Like, you can't, the straight up Marvel Cinematic Universe, I mean, those movies that they didn't get, like, they don't inherently have, like, in my opinion, the greatest set of characters and stories. Like, they're good. The Avengers are good. Like a good set of characters, but the way they took that and just like made this great set of movies with it. I mean, like, the fact that they couldn't do that with Batman and Superman, like, give me a break. Like, what are you doing? Like,
how can you screw that up?
Yeah, it's like an injustice. But anyways, that can get real heated real fast. And I will not claim to be an expert on comics or on those universes. I mean, I've seen the majority of those movies. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Like the Marvel, that studio, they're taking names, man.
The interesting thing about this whole thing, and this is where some of the viewers start to drop off. Usually about an hour and a half in, Steve, is when I'll start allowing questions that have nothing to do with fish. We'll have some fun. And it almost always goes to superheroes because I'm a big fat superhero nerd. This is the way I will sum it up as far as Marvel versus DC in the cinematic universe. The last four Marvel movies that I've gone to the theaters to see: Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Deadpool, Civil War. All four of those movies, I walked out of the theater saying, that's the best superhero movie I've ever seen. Now, a lot of people pooped on Age of Ultron. I thought Age of Ultron was fantastic. I loved it. And maybe it was the James Spader part of it. I don't know. But I loved Age of Ultron. I walked out of that theater. I'm a nerd. I went and saw that movie by myself. What a dork I was. Deadpool was superhero cinematic genius is what that was. I mean, that movie was from start to finish brilliant. Ant-Man. Did you see Ant-Man, Steve?
You know what's crazy is I actually have not. I have Ant-Man and I haven't seen it. Isn't that weird?
Oh my God.
I'm embarrassed because I've seen all the rest of these movies we're talking about. For some reason I'd never watched Ant-Man. I have 2 young children, people.
And they're boys. All the more reason to watch superhero movies.
They're 3 and 5. They're not ready for this stuff yet. Once they are, ooh, buddy. But no, I'm in Thomas the Train situation. Like that's our house right now. We're not quite there yet. And it is hard to get the time that you want between having those children, having a job, having too many fish tanks and a YouTube channel. It's hard to get to see every movie. I'm embarrassed. I used to be that guy who'd seen everything. So I've not seen Ant-Man. Sorry, go on though.
Well, Ant-Man is another one that is cinematic genius. Civil War is, I mean, forget about it. Civil War is awesome. Here's my thing. Marvel just pummels DC as far as the cinematic universes go. It just destroys them. I mean, the Marvel Studios side of things is they're creating masterpieces. DC is still struggling to figure things out. I loved Batman versus Superman. I mean, a lot of people didn't. I did. I bought it. Lisa and I actually watched it 2 weeks ago. Upstairs, we watched the Ultimate Edition. If you haven't seen that, man, I'm telling you, it's a completely different experience from the theatrical cut of Batman versus Superman. Loved that movie. I absolutely did. Suicide Squad, it disappointed me, but it wasn't as terrible as everybody says it is. I loved Leto's Joker. I mean, I could go on and on. I went on and on in a previous live stream, but I think that the people that are killing that are the hardcore DC people that can't separate comics from movies, which I think you should be able to do. But as far as which one is paramount, it's Marvel. Marvel is absolutely slaying DC in the cinematic universes. Did you see Civil War? I mean, you saw Ant-Man in that, right? I mean,
yeah,
it became Giant Man and all that. It was ridiculous. I mean, Ant-Man, I just love it. I don't know if you've seen it, but Sean Peck works for Regal Cinemas, and he sent me an Ant-Man movie poster, and it's just a white poster with a little teeny tiny Ant-Man. It's the coolest poster I've ever seen in my life. It's right there, but I can't move my webcam to show it to you. Absolutely love it. But yeah, I mean, overall, this is what's weird about it. Overall, if I had to choose, you put comics and movies here, DC, comics and movies here, Marvel, I think overall I would have to pick DC because I grew up Superman, The Flash, I mean, Batman, forget about it. I mean, those three, Wonder Woman even, yeah, I'll admit it, Wonder Woman, come on, give me a break. They are at the top of the mountain for me, so I would probably have to take DC, but when it comes to just exclusively movies, forget about it. Marvel's killing it. Next one, Pepsi or Coke?
That's so.
You look like one of those health freaks. So you probably don't even drink soda.
No, I do. Well, I drink Diet Coke like it's going out of style, man. Like I buy Diet Coke at Sam's Club by the whatever the largest number of cans they will sell. It's like 35 cans or something, in this big carton. And then I'm so crazy about Diet Coke that I take. So our office, I work in a very large office building, and we have like cafeterias and stuff where you can just buy, fountain drinks. But I drink so much Diet Coke that I don't even go down to the fountain. I bring in my own 4-pack of 2 liters every few days because it's so much cheaper per ounce. And I'm crazy like that it saves me so much money. And everybody always thinks I'm so silly carrying my, like, I'm schlepping in there with my 4-pack of 2 liters. And every time in the elevator, somebody, they literally, I talk about this all the time, they make the same joke to me every single time. I'm in the elevator, I got my 4-pack of 2 liters, and every time somebody looks at me and say, thirsty? Every single time. Every single person makes the same joke. Like when I get in the elevator and somebody else is in there, I almost just look at them and go, yes, I'm thirsty, thank you. Or maybe the only reason they don't do it is they think I'm like taking that in for an office party or something. Oh no, it's just for me. But growing up, I drank Coke, like just like regular Coke, like all day long. And I look back on it, I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. But yeah, now it's Diet Coke, and it has that whatever. I should probably be drinking Diet Pepsi because they went away from aspartame or whatever that is, and it's probably better. But no, I'm a Coke person.
Well, if we all did the right thing, we'd all be drinking water. But and maybe I, wouldn't be carrying 30 extra pounds with me if I was drinking Diet Coke too. But Diet Coke is gross. I'm sorry, it just tastes like drinking a can of butt. I don't know. That's just, it doesn't work for me. Again, different opinions. We can have a different opinion and still be friends. But
let me tell you the trick. You want to know the trick?
Please tell me.
Like I said, I grew up drinking regular Coke, and I always thought Diet Coke tasted like butt, just like you said. I always thought it was terrible. I just made the switch over completely to where now I haven't had regular Coke in so long that I forget what it's like. Like Diet Coke to me is just what Coke tastes like. And you get so used to it that you don't even, like, it doesn't taste diety anymore. It just tastes like Coke. It's crazy. I never like, and somebody tried to offer me a regular Coke recently, and I said, no, I can't have it because then I'll remember what it's really like. And I can't go back. That's the trick.
Well, good for you. I mean, I wish I could do that, but my thing, I can drink a Coke or a Diet Coke if it is ice cold. I mean, like super cold, but I don't like ice. I don't like ice in my drinks because it makes it too watery. I've got this. Lisa picked this up for me. It's regular Coke and no ice. I don't get ice in them because it just waters it down. Ice cold Diet Coke, I can do it. But if it's a slightest bit warm, no way. We've actually gone up in viewers since we started talking about comic books and sodas. That's kind of weird. Maybe we should start talking fast food or something.
That is weird. You know what my other tip is here? Just in general, okay, so Diet Coke if it's gross or whatever, but just the easiest health tip ever. And I, like we said, I told you this before we started. My metabolism is not what it used to be, which it used to be lightning quick, and none of it mattered. I could just consume anything all day long and never gain a pound. But now, as I'm in my 30s, I can't do that. So my trick now, at least what helps me a lot, is don't drink your calories.
Oh, I know that.
Just don't drink your calories because it's just not like it's so easy to just go overboard. And that's soda, and that's beer is the big one, obviously. You just, if you drink your calories, you're just like shooting yourself in the foot. It makes it so hard.
I can tell you, even though before we started this tonight, you watched me inhale a Whopper. There's a story behind why there was a Whopper tonight. Lisa, I always talk about the food Lisa cooks for me. She cooks fantastic, but she had to do some running around today. And but I know for a fact the reason why I am where I am right now as far as my weight goes. I'm not a big, gigantic, obese guy. I mean, I know that, but I'm carrying some extra weight on it, and it's 100% from soda. I know it. So, yes, you're absolutely right. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So, and you know what? I've been somebody that's kind of weeble wobbled between like 230 pounds and 190 pounds for the last 20 years. every time I've gone down to 190 pounds, it's because I've just forced myself away from soda. So is this guy right here literally trying to talk like he knows what he's talking about, health and fitness and stuff like that? Believe me, I don't. But I do know what you just said is absolute fact. And even Bob from The Biggest Loser would tell you the exact same thing. I used to love that show. But anyway, I think it's probably time, since we're talking about soda and Biggest Loser and Jared Leto, it's probably time to go ahead and shut things down. And I have a tradition that I have done every single time I've had a guest on the show. And I'm going to turn it over in a second to that. But I almost forgot. I definitely want to thank my mods in here tonight, Paul Martin, Evan Alexander, better known as IFG. I hope it was okay that I said his real name. Kevin Green. Those guys have been helping out tonight. Am I forgetting anybody? Oh, Corey. Corey's my other one, but he's not in here tonight. So, yeah, big thank you to those three guys for helping out. I don't know if you've ever done one of these, Steve, on your own channel, but if you try to read your own comments and pull your own questions out, it becomes a huge disaster. So these guys coming in here and doing what they've done tonight is a huge, huge help. So wanted to get that out there. All right. You got time for one more question that's not about comic books or anything? You got time for one more, Steve? You all right?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we've already answered a question from this guy. It popped up. It's a good one. Yao Ming Yen, what YouTube channels do you guys watch?
Oh man.
Don't say KGTropicals either, because I know you're going to be lying.
Man, listen, did I not bust out a specific detail about your tank from last year? Like, obviously I watch. Well, and I've watched you for so long, and that's what this is fun. This is like talking to a TV show almost, like talking to somebody that you've watched on your screen for so long. It's like I'm talking and he's talking back, or like I listen to a podcast in the car driving to work and like saying things like, "Oh yeah, that sounds crazy," and like, "Oh, but here he is. He's actually talking to me." No, I've watched your channel a ton. When I was first getting started in African Cichlids, I watched your channel. I watched, I said earlier, African Cichlid Hub. I watched Jay Wilson. So many good channels. IFG, of course, who's coming on next week and who's moderating a great African Cichlid channel. And I watch, you talked about Corey McElroy, Aquarium Co-op, and hopefully everybody who's watching this knows Corey, and his channel is great. I've watched so much of his stuff. Corey, you put out so much stuff, man. It's hard to keep up. It's like I said earlier to John, it's like a full-time job watching Aquarium Co-op, man. I don't know how it's hard enough just keeping up with watching all of it. It's so good, though, that you want to watch all of it. So for you to put that all out, man, it's impressive, really impressive. There are so many. Of course, I watch Joey. There's so many channels, and that's what's nice. And there's a lot of smaller channels that I watch. Up and coming channels. I feel like, and this is something that I've tried to bring, is that in this hobby there is such a breadth of knowledge, and there's value that you can derive from all kinds of different people, right? People of different ages, people that have been in the hobby for different amounts of time. So there's somebody who's really old school, been keeping fish forever, knows all the old tricks and can share them. There's somebody who's new. I'm newer myself, only a couple years. I'm getting serious about this. But then there's sometimes the fresh perspective can be good. Everybody, regardless of your skill level, your amount of experience, people all over the world, lots of different things going on in different countries. As we know, so much of this stuff, it seems like Asia is so far ahead of us in terms of pioneering fish keeping things. Everybody has something to bring. So I'm really a big proponent of social media, of YouTube specifically, of watching these things. Obviously, if you guys are watching this, you are too. Man, I watch an unhealthy amount of YouTube. I'm a YouTube Red member, like where I buy the thing for whatever it is, $10 a month, so I don't have to watch ads. For me, the amount of YouTube I watch, like I had to. I clicked on something from a browser where I wasn't logged in the other day, and it started showing me an ad, and I like started to twitch because I'm so used to not having the ads now. But yeah, sorry, I'm rambling now. Maybe you can talk about some channels that you like, but there are so many. You can see, actually, I think on my channel I have it open where you can see everybody I'm subscribed to. There's like hundreds and hundreds of channels.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read. I've got mine right here, and I'm going to read it. Now, I'm subscribed to a lot of channels that are not fish channels. Some of them I'll mention, and some of them I won't. But I will definitely shout out every fish channel that I'm subscribed to. And we'll go from A to Z. African Cichlid Hub, Bali12345. Mark Bolton's a good dude. I've known him for a few years. I don't mean to keep name dropping, but Aquarium Co-op, Aquascaping the World, which used to be BM's Aquatics, I think. Hey, BM here. You know that guy? He's from like Boston or something. Good guy. He doesn't put up many videos anymore. Big Munoz, Blue Zoo TV, Bulk Reef Supply, Coral Fish 12 Gallon, Definite Aquascape, Dare Leaves. Anybody that is trying to grow a YouTube channel should be subscribed to Dare Leaves. Discus Hans, Dustin's Fish Tanks, Ed Bassmaster, hello. Fincasters, Forest's Fish Room, Inquisitive Fish Guy, Inventory King, Jay Spalding, JW Heiser, Kicking Butts, let's see, Lou9294, Mass Aquariums, Mbuna Marcus, Mr. Saltwater Tank, Mr. Honey to You, Peck Tech, Philip DeFranco, of course, who isn't subscribed to him, Pure for Kicks, Rachel O'Leary, Steve Poland Cichlids, the Cichlid Shack, the King of DIY, the Pond Digger, the Rick2325, Thomas Brown, Universal Rocks, and that is it for the fish channels. But some others that are in there. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't say Joey, did I? But Joey's in there. I'll screenshot it if you don't believe me. Joey's in there. Did I say Joey, the King of DIY and Pond Digger? So anyway, if anybody wants to know what my absolute favorite YouTube channel is, it kind of goes along with what we were talking about before. Emergency Awesome. That is without any doubt my favorite YouTube channel. It has nothing to do with fish. It has to do with superheroes, comics, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones. He's one of those guys. He does reviews for all the movies. He does reviews for all of the TV shows. He is about to hit, I think, 2 million subscribers. The guy is just awesome. So that is my favorite YouTube channel by far. So there you go. That's my list of fish channels that I am subscribed to. There you go. So this Steve has been fun. We're 4 minutes away from 2 hours, although we did show up a little bit late because of my whopper. But there's something that I like to do at the end of every show. Again, I want to thank my mods, but I like to let my guest close out the show for me. Now, understand, Steve, I don't know if you've done these. Don't go anywhere. Once we're done, we can still talk, and it won't be broadcast. I don't know if you know that, but so don't hang up the call right after you're done. But go ahead and end the show for us. And but before you do that, I do want to thank you for coming on today. This was a lot of fun. I think we had a good time tonight.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thank you so much, John, for having me on here. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I've been watching you forever, so it's just crazy to me to be talking to you for one, and then of course to be broadcasting it. I had this is the first live stream that I've done. I haven't tried any of these on my channels, but this was so much fun that I may have to do that. So in closing, let me just say to everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for all the great questions that we got. If you have more, I'm not hard to find. There's a link to my channel in the description of this. I'm on all the different social media, just like John is. You can find me in the Tank Talk group too. If you have questions that you didn't think of while you're watching this or afterwards, and I'll check the video afterwards as well for at least a little while to see if there's any other questions. But again, thank you everybody for watching this. Be sure to tune in next week. One of my favorite people that we've mentioned a bunch of times on here, IFG, the Inquisitive Fish Guy, one of the absolute best people in this hobby, hands down. If you're not subscribed to that channel and you're watching this, I don't know what you're doing. Absolutely got to subscribe to IFG, and look forward to next week watching that. I'm going to be watching it for sure. I'm sure you guys will have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to have to maybe think of some questions that I can bust out for you and IFG, maybe throw you for a loop or two if I can, to watch that. But that's it. Thanks, guys, so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.